I could read the sign up here, but I wanted to welcome you all to the second of our Presidential Selection Town Hall meetings. I'm Roger Waller, and I'm the President of the Academic Senate here at Delta College, and I get to be the, I think the term is mover-alonger of the meeting, so that we get the opportunity to get through all that we want to do during today's Town Hall meeting. And the major goal is to get you to know the candidate. You see, I get to do the work today. Yesterday we had somebody who worked the slides for me, but today I'm going to try myself, so we'll see how we do. But hopefully you had the opportunity of picking up some of our color-coded cards that will provide comments for our Board of Trustees after each of our town hall meetings. So the cards are color-coded, so depending on whether you're a member of the community, faculty, classified staff, students, or management, you'll have an opportunity to provide feedback to the board. So if you would, at the end of today's meeting, either complete your card and turn it in, or go by Diana Slosson's office, the President's office, and just drop your cards off there, and that'll allow us to provide the board with feedback. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to participate in this process. And as we indicated, the real key is you have an opportunity to meet the candidate. And to do that, you see how I go, and to do that, what we do is we're having our 10-minute introduction, and in a few minutes I'll be giving Dr. Raul Rodriguez an opportunity to make some opening remarks, and then we're going to go into a series of 6 questions. We had actually 12 questions developed by the shared governance groups here on campus, and that's the Academic Senate, the Classified Senate, the Management Senate, and Student Government. And what you'll see in the first series is 6 of those questions, and then we're going to take a break after 20 minutes and give you the opportunity to ask questions. And I have an able staff of Connie and Diana who will be walking through the aisles with a microphone, and I'll identify the people who will be asked to ask their question, and I'll go from one side of the auditorium to the other side and try to keep a balance of questioners and give you the opportunity to ask those questions that you'd like to find out what our candidate feels about those questions, and make us all get a better idea of different perspectives on different issues. So we'll do that for 20 minutes, then we'll come back and conclude the last 6 questions, and then we'll have at the end a final 20 minutes of open questions for you again to ask more questions of our candidates. Now there are a few guidelines that we'd like to have you follow. And obviously the first one is that we want the common courtesy, because we understand people will be coming in and going back to class or going back to your job or whatever. So the big thing is just try to be courteous as you do this. Second thing is to try to only ask one question at a time. And this way we don't have any multiple choice questions and go through a long series of questions. Next, you should try to focus on Delta or district issues, and to avoid personal questions like who's your favorite NBA basketball team. I think we all know the answer to that right now, but we don't want to go into that today especially. And then the last is I'm going to be using that rotational aspect of going from one side of the auditorium and trying to pick different people from different constituent groups. So we thank you all for coming, and what I'd like to ask you now is to provide a good, warm Delta College reception for Dr. Raul Rodriguez.
Thank you, Roger. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. There are seats still left in front if you want to come up this way. And thinking about what I was going to say today in my opening remarks, I thought of 2 things that I wanted to share with you. The first is really my view on leadership. The second one is related to that, and that is who I am as a person. And to get to that, you really have to go back to the main influences on my life, and that is my grandparents. They raised me. I lived with them until I was 10 years old. They had a profound influence on my life. I can't tell you how profound that influence was. And they gave me a happy childhood, a wonderful childhood that I wouldn't trade for anything. It was fantastic. But they taught me many valuable lessons. And one of the things they taught me was the value of education. These are 2 people. My grandmother had 6 years of formal education. My grandfather had 6 months of formal education. They both taught themselves to read and write in English and Spanish. They were incredible people. But the lesson they taught me about education was to value education. They sacrificed to teach me that lesson. One of the things they did was put me in a Catholic school so I'd have a firm foundation and a religious background. The second thing they did, they never told me you're going to go to college. They never said that explicitly. What they did do is they bought me a set of encyclopedias. When I was a kid, that was like having the strongest, the most powerful PC with the fastest internet connection. I mean, getting those encyclopedias, that was incredible. Every kid in the neighborhood was envious. They'd all come over to my house to borrow them to do their book reports for school. And I spent hours poring over those encyclopedias. I loved them. I mean, I would just read about clothing patterns, over history, about the human body, about some things. And, it ignited a love of learning in me that I've never, ever left behind with me. And so thank him for that. I came across a study a while back on leadership, and I thought it was very instructive what it had to say. And there was it's a book called Going from Good to Great. And there was an article in the Harvard Review. It's called Level 6 Leadership, and they talk about the study that they did, and they went to the highest performing organizations that they could find to study these organizations. And going into the study, they thought there would be a number of factors that would influence the high performance of these organizations. And they didn't think leadership would be one of those. In fact, they were dead set against leadership. But what they found after doing this study, that it was leadership that made the difference in those organizations. And there were four critical factors. The first was personal humility. The second was professional determination or will. The third was workmanlike diligence. And the fourth was a future orientation. When I look at those four factors, and I will talk about them in a second, they made me think about my grandparents and the lessons that they taught me when I was a child, because they exemplified those things. And let me tell you how they did that. The first one, personal humility. In Hispanic culture, it's not, you don't usually want to brag about yourself. You don't talk about yourself. You're taught to be humble. But this is really humility in a different way. And it's humility that's focused on the family, a family orientation. The family is bigger than the individual. It's not what you do as an individual. It's what you do for the family, for your nuclear family, for your extended family. And that's the approach that my grandparents took. They never bragged about anything that they did. Everything that they did was for the family, to help the family move along. And the same with an organization. It should not be focused on one individual. Certainly the president is in a prominent role, but the president's role too is also to share that spotlight, to share recognition, reward with other people, and to really keep the organization out there in front. It really is an extended family at college, and so you have to keep that in mind. The second one, the professional will, that one, it's really about success and being focused on success. And my grandfather had this dogged determination to succeed, and luckily he did. And many people have to worry about their grandparents or their parents in many ways. I never had to, because by the time my grandfather retired, he was set. And so, which is a good thing, because he died about a year ago, February. He was 97 years old. My grandmother's still alive, and she's doing very well. She'll be 99 on her next birthday. They were married for 77 years. So that's a model of stability and a source of inspiration for me personally. And so what I got out of this from my grandfather is he'd come home from work. He had a tough job, but he would change his clothes. If it was good weather, he'd be outside all afternoon and evening working in his garden, tending the roses, trimming the hedges, cutting the grass, pulling the weeds. I mean, he worked. He was a worker. And, as a president, as a leader of a college, you have to be the same way. You set a tone, and you have to have that tunnel vision for the organization to succeed. You really have to have your eye focused on getting this organization to move along, to improve, because no matter how good an organization is, it can always improve. The third one, workmanlike diligence. My grandfather, as I said, he worked very, very hard. What that showed me is that not to be a show horse, but to be a plow horse. I've seen many presidents who are charismatic, leaders that you love to follow because of the force of their personality. I worked for one who was a very good example of that, Del Anderson, who I thought was a great leader. But when she was the president of San Jose City College, she became bigger than the college because of her personality. People, when they thought of San Jose City, they thought of Dale Anderson. And in fact, San Jose Mercury News did a spread on her that they've never done before on a community college president and probably will never do again, just because of the personality that she brought to the job. But you know what? When she left, the college was in a worse way, because along with her went that image, that identification that people in the community had, and so the college had to then start to rebuild. And so a charismatic leader isn't always the best leader, and that study showed that they don't always get the best results. And so to me, being a plow horse is important. I like action. I like getting things done. I like to surround myself with people who are the same way, who like to get things done. To me, actions speak very loud, and my grandparents showed me that. Last one, the future orientation. My grandparents were always focused on making our life better. They were always saving money. My grandfather would buy these little houses, and he would work so hard to remodel them, and then he'd sell them, and then he'd buy another one, and that way he built up a nest egg and was able to take care of himself and my grandmother. And I think a president has to have that same future orientation. My grandparents left me in a better place than where they were. They left me with a road that I could follow to surpass their success. And I think as a president, that's your job too. It's not only to make the organization successful, it's to make whoever is your predecessor even more successful than you were. So setting that foundation in place to move the college forward, to improve it. Those are 4 areas of leadership. There are many other areas of leadership, and certainly, we could talk all day about those, and many people have different views of leadership. But I just wanted you to see where I come from in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more, obviously. People are more complex than what I was able to describe in this short time. But those factors, those variables, those characteristics of leadership, to me, I think those are vitally important, the 4 I mentioned. And if I'm selected as the president of Delta College, I will use all the capabilities that I have to move this college forward and to improve it. And those are my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go into our first 6 questions. And Raul, our first question is from the Management Senate, and it is, how would you approach the need for expanded services and the reality of a declining budget?
This is a question that, of course, is on everyone's mind, given the budget picture that we're facing in the next couple of years, the scenario that we're hearing how dire it's going to be. Let me tell you that when I got to Los Medanos College, there were lots of things going on at the college, but one of them is that the college, and I talked about this in the interview, the college was overspending its budget on a regular basis, an annual basis, and sometimes by a lot of money, significant amount of money. And most of that overspending occurred in certain areas in what we call the C account, which is part-time hourly budget. Many departments didn't have budget controls, and they were just offering classes and offering them to part-timers and not really keeping track and staying within a budget. So first of all, you have to get control of expenses, and you really have to look at the budget and get control over the items in the budget. So you really have to know the budget. So that's the first thing that you need to do. And if you get control of the budget, then oftentimes you'll find resources that you need for other things if you draw certain things into line. When I was a researcher many moons ago, I was at the University of California, San Francisco, and I did a study in the psychiatric emergency services at San Francisco General Hospital. And the reason they asked our team to do this study is because their budget was totally out of whack, and they didn't know why. And what we found when we did the study is that one particular group was using the services at a disproportionate level, and they hadn't budgeted for that. They didn't even realize it. And so once they understood where these budget issues were coming from, then they were able to go back and take steps to correct it. And I think that's really what you have to do with the budget. I mean, the budget doesn't take care of itself. You have to prune it, like a rose or like a flower in your garden. So you really need to know the budget and work with it. In terms of developing resources, there's always the ability to go out and get outside resources to supplement what you have on campus, writing grants and developing partnerships, and so many things that can extend what you really have to work with. At Los Medanos, we developed a Brentwood Center, and we couldn't have done it by ourselves. We didn't have the resources. We were entering into that process to open an off-campus center. I told everyone, this is going to be very difficult. The state's not going to give us money to do this. Our district isn't really going to give us money to do this. We're going to have to do this off of our own backs and stretch our budget to do it. And we did that, but by getting that foothold in that community, we were able to then work with the city council, to work with local business people, and we worked out a fantastic deal to open up a new center that we never would have been able to. We didn't have the resources to do it, but we worked out a deal so that the city did all of the renovations for us. And we did a few things, but they did the bulk of it. We worked out a long-term lease agreement where we pay them back for the improvements that they made, and it's a sliding scale. If we get at a certain enrollment level, we pay them this much. If we surpass that level, we pay them a little bit more. So it's affordable for us, and it's a great investment for them because they have a college in the community. So there are partnerships and things that you can do to expand your resources. So there's always a creative way if people get together and look at how to expand resources.
Thank you. Our second question comes from the Classified Senate, and it is, what experiences do you have in participatory governance structure working with different college constituencies? Give examples.
None at all, really. I've only been in California 20 years, so I never heard of it. Of course, I was here when AB 1725 came into effect, and so it is mandated participatory governance. Many people like to call it shared governance. Whatever you call it, it's here. We live with it. It's a part of our lives, and it's very important. I think many colleges had this in place even before AB 1725 came, but that certainly really, said you got to do this. And so I have all kinds of experiences. I mean, every college I've been a part of, from Cabrillo to San Jose City to Los Medanos, even back when I was teaching and working at UC's, they had something like it. So I've worked in many different capacities in this regard. Before I became president, certainly worked with something like your management senate, management councils and those kinds of groups. I've worked very closely with academic senates, the classified senates, and student senates, of course. One of the things I've done is I like direct face-to-face meetings, and so I created a group at Los Medanos, which I call PI, President's Information Exchange. And so after every cabinet meeting I have with the senior level administrators, later on that day I meet with the representatives of all the constituent groups, with the student government, with the classified, with the faculty, and we have the union reps there too. And we discuss all the issues that came out at the cabinet. We get feedback on issues. It's a place for them to bring up issues. It's not a formal, it's kind of an informal thing, but I find it's a way to really put rumors to rest, to get right to the heart of issues, to give people a heads up if something's coming down the pike that they need to know about. I think that's vital. The communication is critical in terms of participatory or shared governance, and you have to develop those mechanisms to keep the communication going. It's so critical. Otherwise, as I said, it's rumor, it's innuendo, it's hurt feelings, it's misperceptions, and so the communication is important. And you have to work with all constituencies. There have been times when it's been difficult to work with a particular constituency for a certain reason. Student government, the student president left, and so nobody was coming to, but you have to keep reaching out. You have to keep trying to bring people in if there are those kinds of things that occur. So it's important to involve everyone and to have everyone have a say. And otherwise, how can you go forward as a college unless everyone has input into a decision, or unless you hear what they have to say and you make decisions together. So I could probably go into more detail, but I know we only have a few minutes for each question.
That's right. Thank you. Our next question comes again from the Management Senate, and it is, a good working relationship with the public and private sectors and community leaders within the district is critical to the future of the college. Provide us with examples of community partnerships or collaborations that you have developed, and or provide us with some of your ideas regarding college/community relationships.
Okay. I mentioned the Brentwood Center, and that was an example of a partnership with another public entity. And there are many others, though. We've developed partnerships with Cal State Hayward, which is our closest CSU. They have a very nice campus in Concord and on Ignacio Valley Road. And when I first got to Los Medanos, I went to attend meetings at that campus. And one of the things I realized is there were no students there. It's a beautiful campus built by the taxpayers of the state, and there's no students there during the day. So I found out their program was only an evening program. So I started thinking, it'd be nice if we could offer classes there during the day. The problem was that campus wasn't in the service area of my college. So I approached our sister college, the president of our sister college, and said, would you like to do a partnership and start offering classes there? And he said yes. So we developed a program that we've been doing there for the last 4 or 5 years, I think it is, where we offer classes, lower division classes at Cal State Hayward. And it's actually helped their enrollment tremendously, that their programs are thriving even more because the students come to take our classes, then they then stay to take their classes. So it's been a great collaboration. We've also worked with all of our local municipalities in various ways. With the city of Pittsburgh, they had a center in downtown called the Marina Center. We worked with them to get a CDBG grant, which is a grant, the community, I don't remember what all the acronym stands for, but it's money that comes from the federal government for restoration of downtown areas and those kinds of things. And we got a big grant from them to remodel this Marina Center downtown, where we've now taken our public safety training programs and put them down there because, like your campus, our campus is suffering from a space crunch, and so we needed to free up space on campus for other programs. And that was a program we've been looking for to move off campus for quite a while. So that was a partnership that worked very much in our favor. And related to that is that public safety training, police academy, advanced officer training, and the like is very expensive programs to run. So we looked for a partnership with our sheriff's office, and we developed one. And so they actually took over the running of the police academy and the advanced officer courses, and we're doing an FTS partnership with them, which means that we're still submitting the courses to the state for funding, but we pay the sheriff now for covering his costs for doing the program. So it's a real win-win for us, and the sheriff loves it. I mean, the sheriffs like to be in charge, so it was a good thing for him, and he can do the kind of training he wants, and he can control the curriculum. We just make sure that the curriculum is appropriate, and they're hiring appropriate faculty, and we get something back from doing that. And so we've done that in a number of areas with fire, with EMT, and we're looking at cosmetology, and we're looking for new areas to do that in as well. It's a low cost to us, and in terms of we don't have to buy the equipment, you don't have the overhead, you don't have the other costs, and it really brings a benefit to the college. So those are some of them. In terms of college-community relationships, I think they're critically important, and one of the things I've been preaching at Los Medanos since I've been there is we have to bring the community back in community college, because it was a college that really wasn't very well integrated with its community. And so we've been doing that in a number of ways. We had a gospel concert last weekend. We had it out in the community, and I think we sold something like, it's in a big venue, so 3,000 or 4,000 tickets, something like that. And it's a great way to give something back to the community. We bring in big gospel acts, and we have a wonderful gospel choir on campus, and so we're able to feature them in that event. And so having events for the community is really a good way to develop these relationships, and certainly working with all the partners out there and businesses in the cities.
Our next question comes from student government, and it is, please explain your interpretation of AB 1725, shared governance, and your experience in campus decision-making.
Okay. In terms of AB 1725, I think it's very clear there are 9 academic and professional matters, and you either have to mutually agree or rely primarily on the advice of faculty in those areas. The problem comes in is that the areas are very general, and you could almost put anything that goes on at the college under those 9 areas, and so that's where we really run into problems. So they need to be well defined on a particular campus, because the state doesn't give us other guidelines. And so it's a process that has to happen at every campus, I think, and it hasn't happened at enough campuses, and I think that's why we oftentimes still have trouble with shared governance, because we haven't really defined what it is. Is it policy formulation? Is it decision making? Is it policy implementation? Is it all of those things? You know, unless you really sit down and work it out and define it more clearly, then it's hard to say what it is. It could be whatever you want. And in terms of decision making, my experience in that, certainly you try to include as many people as you can in decisions that are made. The problem I ran into at Los Medanos is they had a culture that liked to discuss an issue for 2 years before they would make a decision. And clearly that does not work in today's world. So what we've done is try to put timelines on making decisions and say, okay, everyone, get your input in. Okay, this train is moving. You got to get it in there. And when the train gets to the end, it's going to go. And if you haven't had your input in, well, you had your chance. And we try to communicate in various ways through various venues. I mean, people really have, faculty and students and classified staff really have a couple of bites out of the apple in most of these processes. So it's not like they only hear it one time and that's it. They usually get multiple points where they can provide input. So, but it has to be a decision that the college can understand. And one of the things that really helps is if the decision is reached, everyone needs to understand why that decision was reached. And so you need to explain, this is the rationale behind it. This is why we're doing this. And so I think even if you don't agree with the decision, if you understand the rationale, it's a little easier to accept and to go along and be a good citizen and say, okay, I realize this is good for the college. Okay, let's move forward. So I hope that answers the question.
Roger, can you turn up the sound?
Bob, could you turn up the sound a little bit? Hey, I have my...
I don't want to blast people out, but I do have a soft voice, so I'll try to bring it up a little bit.
No, thanks, Tony. Our next question comes from the Academic Senate, and it is, you have received a complaint from a community member about a particular class. The community member asserts that the instructor and content of the class are racist and sexist. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it?
Well, in a situation like this, certainly you have to meet with the community member and you have to discuss their complaint and ask them if they want to file a formal complaint or if it's just a verbal complaint. In any event, you're going to do some type of investigation. It's a formal complaint, maybe the investigation, there are accepted procedures at a college for following it. If they don't want to go that route, usually I still do an investigation. And what I mean by that is I'll talk with the faculty member and find out what's the issue involved. You try to gather as much information as you can to inform, because one of the things, if you've been around in administration a long time, one of the things that you find is that there are multiple perspectives on any problem. And not to invalidate what a person would say, but there's always another side or maybe two sides to an issue. So you want to, give everyone due process in any investigation or any process that you follow to investigate a complaint. And so certainly you gather that information, you get statements from people. One of the things I do too is if somebody lodges a complaint like that, I say, what do you want out of this? What do you want to see as a resolution of this? And a lot of times people don't have a good answer, or if they do, they say, well, I don't really want anything. I just want somebody to pay attention to this issue. I want somebody to talk to the instructor. I want this or that. And oftentimes you can usually deal with it if that's the kind of thing. If there really is something there, if there really is an issue going on in the classroom, then certainly if there are procedures in place to deal with it, there's something called academic freedom, and faculty have a lot of latitude in what they do in the classroom. And unless they break the law or do something really egregious, there's not a lot you can do other than to talk to them and try to, help them to understand that this is causing problems for students, and we're really here to serve students, and this, maybe potentially harming students, and so get them to try to change their behavior. But it may be someone's interpretation of what it is too. It really depends. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule. I think each situation has to be taken on its own merits, but certainly you follow accepted procedures and how you go about addressing that issue.
The last of our first series of questions from the constituent groups comes from the Classified Senate. It is, what is your ideal chain of command used to communicate with you?
As I said, I like face-to-face meetings. I like people to come up and talk to me and tell me things, to communicate. So in an informal sense, I prefer informal to formal, but certainly there has to be formal chains of commands and that type of communication. But this isn't the military, I've worked in a corporation a number of years ago where I had an office across the hall from the director of our department, but I could not walk across the hall to say, hey, Joe, here's a memo. No, I'd have to send it to my supervisor, who would send it to his manager, who would send it to the vice president, who would then send it to the director, even though I was right across the hall from him. And so I think chain of command can get blown out of proportion. And certainly In an organization nowadays, you want a flattened hierarchy so that there's a lot of communication between people. At Los Medanos, we're doing a reorganization now. One of the things I'm trying to do is to flatten out the management hierarchy so that the deans, who are the front lines with instructional folks, can really be leaders, so they can have the time freed up to talk with people and to visit with department heads and meet with departments and find out what people are doing to help them move forward to progress. And if you have a hierarchy that's too top-down, that's too hierarchical, then those things don't happen because you get bogged down in the paperwork and the details and you don't really have time to be a leader. So I like a chain of command and a style of communication that really frees people up and empowers them to do the things they need to do in their everyday tasks, whatever those may be.
Well, now it's your opportunity, and so I get to wander around here a little bit. And what we're going to do is we get our crack crew working, and that's, as you can see, Diana and Connie are hustling to their posts here. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, I guess since Connie is not over there yet, we'll start over on this side. So if you have a question that you would like to ask, please raise your hand. And then what we'll do is we'll come over to the other side and we'll start in that sequence. So Tony, I see your hand up first. So we'll go with Tony Cedillo, and if you would, please identify yourself. Tony, you got to do it all over again. Please identify yourself and who you represent.
My name is Tony Cedillo.
Tony.
I am one of the counselors here. At the last forum with the other candidate, I asked the same question,
okay.
And that is that what did that candidate see the importance of counseling versus advisors, adjunct counselors, etc., and also with respect to teaching. Before 1727, and probably when you were at San Jose City College, almost everyone was a full-time faculty, and we had full-time counselors. And so you can know the trend has gone practically where it's the other way. A majority of people in some schools are part-time instructors, part-time counselors, etc. What has been your experience at Los Medanos, and what would you want to see here at Delta?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Los Medanos is in this way kind of idiosyncratic in that when I came there, there was nobody doing 100% counseling. When people were hired in as counselors, they had a split load, and they often did 60% counseling and 40% teaching, and that's the way it had always been there. That presented a lot of problems when you're trying to meet a student body that the majority of the students are underprepared. It's their first time in college. They need a lot of upfront services, even intrusive counseling, if you will, and I'll talk about that later. So that, I've been working the last few years to change that, and eventually we did create a counseling department. There wasn't even a counseling department there. And we asked the counselors to choose, do you want to teach or do you want to counsel? And so we separated out the people who really wanted to counsel from those who didn't. And on top of that is another issue that's going on in our district, and that is trying to determine what the actual workload is for a counselor. Many of the counselors believe that it's 27 and a half hours per week. I'd say it's 40 hours per week, that you work 27 and a half hours in direct services to students, and then you have work outside of that, whether it's committee work or prep or what other thing it is in service to the college. And so we don't see eye to eye on that issue. I think people need to put in their 40 hours a week no matter what they do. And many people put in a lot more than that, I understand. But we need direct services to students. As I said, students are coming in, they don't even know where to go. They don't know how to fill out an application. We need people to walk them through those processes. One of the best things we did at Los Medanos is that we hired counselors from our high schools to work for us. And, that's been a revelation because those counselors have taught us so much about what we weren't doing and the information we weren't giving out. They've become our best advocates in those high schools, and they really turned it around for us. They're telling students, you need to go to Los Medanos College first because they have this, they have that, and then the other. And they've helped us refine our orientation to really get the students the information that they need. So, on this one, I kind of take a hard approach in that I'm not going to hire another full-time counselor at Los Medanos College until we get the issue squared away about what their work week is. Because I think somebody who's going to come in and 27 and a half hours a week is it. They're going to punch their time clock and they're gone, what kind of service are they giving our students? I don't think it's adequate. And we need counselors that are devoted, that are going to be there for the students. And you asked about advising and that kind of thing. And, you know, I'm all for that if it's done correctly. And it's very hard to do correctly, though, because if you have faculty advisors or you have other people serving as advisors, you have to set up a training program. You have to keep them up to date. And if they give out the wrong information, then they're not doing students a service either. So you really have to get those people trained and keep them trained. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And so, you know, I really believe in with the population that we have in community colleges of this, I don't like the word intrusive, but that's what many people call it. Another term for it is a case management approach, like in social service, where you really try to have a lot of contact with students and guide them through at the beginning, almost like early alert kind of thing, because our students, many of our students need that. How many times at the beginning of the semester is the parking lot packed and you can't get a parking space, and it's just, and then 4, 5, 6 weeks later, there's a lot of spaces. Where'd those students go? You know, that's what I'm talking about, giving the services to students so they stay in school.
Okay, thank you. Now, who on this side has another question? Okay, this is the heavy side. So we're going to come down to Manuel first, and then we'll go to this gentleman in the next row.
Excuse me. My name is Manuel Bayan. I'm First Vice President of California Schools Employees Association, Chapter 359. If you are chosen president by the board, you will be coming in at a time when the bargaining units are going up for a new contract. Mm-hmm. What's your experience with collective bargaining?
Well, of course, collective bargaining was put in California even before I got to the state, so it's always been here since I arrived in California. So every college I've worked at, I've had a role in collective bargaining to a certain extent, either advising the people at the table or serving at the table, or being part of working with the board in my current district and on negotiations. And so I think I have a lot of experience in working with classified contracts and faculty contracts and the whole collective bargaining process. I don't like conflict any more than anyone else does. I don't really believe that negotiations have to be an us-them mentality. I mean, that really turns me off. And sometimes maybe it's unavoidable. I mean, sometimes that's a strategy that people use to stir up conflict. And, you deal with that if that's what it is. But if there's any way to get to interest-based bargaining, negotiations, that kind of thing, where you put everything out there on the table, what are your mutual interests, and go through that kind of process. And I think that's the best, possible approach, because then it's not as there's not as much conflict. And I have a friend who's a president of another community college, and they do this in their district, and they've been doing it there for a long time. And it gets to the point where he just says, okay, you want this? Go look in the budget, find it, and come back, and if you found it, you got it, So you could do that kind of thing if you have that approach, where there's a lot of trust going around, people really have faith in one another, coming, with honest motives, and really have not only their interests of themselves in mind, but really also think about the interests and try to balance that with the interests of students and of the college as a whole. Because it's not just about you as a union member, you're an employee of a college, a community college. So we're here to help students succeed, and so if you want something that's going to throw the college out of whack, that doesn't help the college move forward either. So there has to be a balance there. Certainly people need to be paid well. You want people to come in at a good place in terms of competition with other colleges and so on, but not at the price of student success or compromising what we're doing in terms of educational excellence for our students.
Connie, I'm going to put you to work here because we have to stimulate questions on this side of the room here. Otherwise, Diana will fall asleep. So after this gentleman, we'll go up to Janice in the back. So Diana, find Janice over here. Please identify yourself and your group.
Hello, my name is Frank Orozco. I'm a community activist. I'm President Emeritus of the Coalition of Mexican American Organizations, and I've spent a lot of time here at this community college. I think it's really the highest that most students will be going to. My question, education leads to the good life. Would you please identify your background capability that opens the door for traditional excluded minority people?
Thank you, Frank. First of all, I believe that students, this isn't the end of the line for many students. I think many students will transfer, and we need to support them in the effort to transfer and try to get them to transfer, because that's a critical key for success and well-being down the road. So certainly occupational programs are important, and many people are going to go that route, but we can't forget that many people can go that route, and we just need to support them. In my application letter, I talked a little bit briefly about my background, and I was born in Oklahoma, and I'm 50 years old. I was born in 1952. And even though in 1954 segregation was outlawed, Oklahoma didn't hear about it until much later, because when I was growing up, Jim Crow was still the law of the land, and when I went to a public park, there was a part of the park for whites and a part of the park for people of color, and the same in drinking fountains and the same in stores, and I saw that when I was a kid. That's part of my background, my lifetime. I saw apartheid here in the United States of America, and I grew up in that environment. You can never forget that. You can never forget that. That's always going to be in here. That's a part of me. And so that colors certainly how I look at the world. I look through that lens of having had that experience. And so I think that has helped me to relate to students and really see what students need to be successful. And one of the things I see is that our K-12 system is not doing the job in all respects. And so we need to give them a helping hand. So my response to that has been to start programs with our local school districts, and I call them the Summer Math Institute, the Summer English Institute, and I call them boot camp for math and boot camp for English. And this is just one response. I mean, obviously this is not going to solve the problem, but it's part of the bigger issue of creating the pipeline. I used to teach Chicano psychology for many, many years, and one of the things I always talk about in the education section is that there's not an educational pipeline, it's an educational funnel, because if you track it over time, it starts out this way and first grade, and then it goes on, and it gets narrower and narrower and narrower until you have 100 students that started out in first grade and maybe 2 students that ended up getting a graduate degree. And so it's a funnel, it's not a pipeline. So we need to broaden that pipeline to bring more people into it. And so we need to create special programs that reach out to students, like the Summer Math Institute, which is helping students to bring up their math skills or their English skills. And we've seen students in these summer institutes jump to grade levels in math, and it's helped train the teachers in the local school districts, because those are the faculty, but we give them a different type of training than they're used to, so they can take those methods back into the classroom, and then it starts to create a different mindset in the schools that are serving, help to bring up the test scores and that kind of thing. So there are many responses that we need to make. That's just one of them, but that's what we're about at a community college. We're about serving the entire community, not one segment of it, not one little part of it, but the entire community. And certainly we have to do better in serving the traditionally underserved populations. This community has a growing Latino population, and Delta College isn't serving that student group, Latino students, at the same level that they are in the population. I think it's important to try to get to that level. I think there needs to be more outreach, there needs to be more programs related to that to help. I mean, Prop 209 and the stuff that Ward Connolly's doing has limited what we can do, but it doesn't mean that we stop serving those students. We serve all students, certainly. We serve every student that comes through the door, but some students you need to give a little helping hand, because that playing field is not yet level. And until it is, people are going to need that little boost. So that's still part of our responsibility, the way I see it.
Thank you. Connie, next is the 3 rows back, but before we do that, we're going to go to Janice on this side, but I'm getting you ready, Connie, so get primed. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Rodriguez. My name is Janice Takahashi, and I'm an EOPS counselor here at Delta. My question to you is, what would you do if you came on campus and you realized that the main barriers to shared governance is a lack of trust and the existence of small factions with individual agendas?
That's not uncommon, and I've experienced that before. When I got to Los Medanos, it was essentially, there was almost open warfare, if you will, among constituent groups, especially between management and faculty. There had been an interim president there, and that person and the academic senate president did not get along, and was kind of, continual clash. And so the first thing that I did coming in is that I spent a lot of time with that academic senate president. I talked about this in my letter as well, so those people on the committee bear with me as I go through this. I spent a lot of time with her, talking about her issues, about philosophy, about the college, all those kinds of things. And, it got to the point where the manager started to get a little worried, a little upset. Raul's spending all this time with her. I mean, she must have him in her back pocket. And the faculty had the same kind of thing. They were getting worried that every time they'd walk by my office, they saw Linda in there with me. And we'd be talking about things, and they'd start questioning her, saying, why are you spending so much time with Raul? We're a little worried. Are you in his back pocket? Is he telling you what to do? And so that shows that trust wasn't there on both sides. So it really started with Linda and I moving together, Linda Collins, in a face-to-face format, and just discussing everything. Just where do you stand on this issue? Where do you stand on that one? How can we do this? How can we do that? And then broadening the circle once we came to an understanding. And she became a strong supporter of me. I was able to do many of the things at the beginning when I was there because of Linda's help. And if I wouldn't have had her help, it would have been much more difficult. And she was an advocate for me with faculty, saying, Raul's just trying to do this. He doesn't have this ulterior motive. He doesn't have this hidden agenda. So she could help in that regard. And so that's how you start to build trust, by meeting with people face to face, by getting the issues out there, by broadening the circle and bringing more people into it. In terms of the factions, that's another very difficult, sometimes intractable issue, in the sense that, we were talking about this earlier with Roger about how at LMC, one of the things that I really regret, and this happened before I got there, is they built a brand new, beautiful music building. But the fact is that it doesn't have a theater, so it can only be for music. When it should have been, a performing arts center where you could do theater productions there, you could have, recitals, you could do the whole shebang. But one particular person in the music department didn't want anything to do with drama. He didn't want them, messing up his a rehearsal schedule. He didn't want them, bringing those sets onto his, he wanted it for himself. So when you let factions or individuals, make decisions for the entire, that are going to affect the entire college, it's not a good thing. And so the way to get, I think, factions together is try to get people to understand the greater good of the college, and that's the approach I take. And I'm a social psychologist by training, so of course I go back to the Sharif studies and Robbers, cave and all that, and so trying to get people to this superordinate goal and the greater good, and that's one way to approach it. There are probably others, but that's the way I've tried, and I've been successful with that approach. So.
All right, thank you. Who's next on this side over here? All right, we'll come down to Nancy. I know you're next, but we got to get Diana prepared. So you're up.
My name is Marisol Jacquez, and I'm from the Concilio in Tracy. And I have a question.
Yes.
There are many students in high school right now who are illegal, not only Latinos, but also Oriental students. And just because they don't have their green card, they can't continue their education. They can't go into college because nobody accepts them without that number. So I was just wondering, what are you going to do to help the illegal people come into Delta College?
Well, I'll send them to Los Medanos College, because at Los Medanos we don't ask. If they don't say, we don't ask. And, it's not our job to be the INS. I don't think it's our job. And I think we need to serve all the people that are here. People who are here illegally are still paying taxes. They're still contributing to our society, and why should we shut them out and deny them an education? I know that's not a popular opinion with many people, but I'm sorry, based on the experiences I've had in my life, that's what I believe in my heart, and I think we need to serve that population, find a way to do it. And I don't want to break the law. I don't want you to give the impression that I'm advocating breaking the law. But I think it's a shame if we have people who are bright, who really want to learn, and many times the immigrants have a higher level of desire to learn. To turn those people away from bettering themselves is not right. I just don't think it's right. And so I would try to see if there's a way that we could serve them at Delta College. And maybe there isn't. If there isn't, there's nothing you can do, but maybe there is a way to do it. And certainly, I'm not advocating, as I said, breaking the law, but finding a way to serve them is really my purpose, to help students no matter who they are.
Okay. Nancy, you get to be the last question in this half, and then we'll come back. We have another 20-minute session after our next series of 6 questions from the constituent groups. Nancy?
My name is Nancy Mangum. I'm on the library faculty. Our question is, what, in your opinion, are the most important challenges facing community college libraries today?
Okay. Interesting question. I think there's a number of them. Obviously, resources is very important. If they're cutting our budget or equipment money or block grant money, that hurts the libraries as much as anyone, because you can't buy the books you need to buy, you can't buy the equipment you need to buy, and so there are other ways to do it that are difficult, though. I mean, Friends of the Library, you can develop organizations that can help, and so there's ways to supplement it, but that usually doesn't quite fill the bill. So I think you need to, if you really want to have a library that's comprehensive and serves the needs of students, then you need to make it a priority and really devote the resources to it. One of the things I did at Los Medanos is that we've never had a decent library. The college at the beginning made a huge mistake and built a very tiny library because the president at that time thought he was a visionary. In some ways he was, and he didn't believe that students really, he looked at the patterns of students checking out books and that kind of thing. He said, they hardly use it. What do we want to have a big library for? So as a result, we have one of the smallest and most inadequate libraries you're ever going to find on a college campus. So we've lived with that legacy for a long, long time, and it's been very difficult. We have a student body of over 11,000 students, and we have 45 study spaces on campus. So my first priority was to get a new library project in with the state, which we did. And if this bond measure, the statewide bond measure, passes in November, we'll have the funds for construction. And but I've explored other ways. I know that your immediate past president, Ed, was looking at a community library, and I did the same thing. I worked with cities of Pittsburgh and Antioch trying to find a way to develop a regional library, and at the end we kind of just threw up our hands and said, there's too many problems, we'll never make it work. So I think that's an issue. There probably will in the future be more and more pressure on community college libraries to try to partner with the community, but until we remove some of those obstacles, I don't see it being a very easy process. And the idea is to share more resources, be able to do more. But if you have different library systems and you have different, rates for staff, I mean, there's so many. There's a whole long list of problems, as you know. So that's certainly a problem that libraries are going to face. But with this information literacy and so on, librarians have come up with a new role, and that is to train people on how to navigate the World Wide Web and how to gather information, not to spend all their time out there with search engines that aren't going to help them. And so that's a real challenge not to the library so much, but to the librarians, and to how do they, get this, teach people how to use the new, modern, the emerging library and the information sources that are out there. So those are some of the issues I see.
Thank you. Now we're going to go back to our set 6 remaining questions. And Connie is hustling over to the projector. Get us back warmed up. There we go. Now, those of you who didn't have an opportunity in this 20-minute period, we're going to come back with another open forum 20 minutes, so hang in there. Next question comes from the Academic Senate. And it says the college shared governance committees have established a process for distribution of the Partnership for Excellence monies. The various groups have submitted the projects according to the guidelines. You received the projects and disagree with some of the projects which have been approved according to the shared governance process. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it?
Well, this is a difficult question to answer because there was an established process on campus, and it had been going on, and everyone understood the rules, then you don't want to violate that process. I mean, I don't think that's a good idea to do it. On the other hand, if you're a president who's in tune with the vision, sometimes you see things that other people don't, and you can advocate for that position. I think that's part of your job, is say, yeah, these are all great projects, but you left out this thing here, and we need to address it. And I'm not surprised to see this question here, because something like this happened to me at Los Medanos, where we went through our PFE process, and one of the projects that I thought was really critical for the future of the college was left off the list. And I said, we simply can't ignore this project, and we have to find a way to fund it. And it was an e-commerce program, and it was for developing online courses to help our local businesses and help them develop an online presence and to do other things in developing their businesses. And I thought it was important for our economic development efforts. It was important to reach out to the community. It was important to start developing online courses because we didn't have any. I just thought it was so critical for our college to move forward. So I just went to everyone and said, look, this is what I think This is what I think of this issue. This is what I think we should do. And I addressed the Senates. I addressed everyone. We had a campus-wide discussion about it, and we went forward and we included that project, and I think we've been better for it because it's been very successful, and we had a forum like this where we brought in business people to find out about the program. I think we had 500 people attend from the community to come to that forum about e-commerce, and our classes have done very well since then, so it's been a very successful program for the college. And I saw we were making a mistake, and sometimes you need to correct errors. And we still did everything else that we needed to do, but we found some extra money to do this other project. And I think that's the role of the president to do that. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Sometimes you have to do that, do what you think is right.
Thank you. The next question comes from student government. It says, please name and comment on a progressive, positive, or courageous act taken by each of the following groups while under your leadership: classified staff, students, faculty, and management.
Okay. Our classified staff, this is easy for me in the sense that I've seen so much growth in our classified staff at Los Medanos, and I've seen people who are afraid to speak in public become very good public speakers once they got involved in leadership and started learning about it. And one of the things I'm very proud of our classified staff, which I think was a courageous act, is they stood up and said, hey, we want our share of staff development money too, and we want to do things for our group. And so we've been able to help them do that, develop a little conference that they do every year called Job Links, where all the classified staff in our district come together. And it was in March. We had the last one, and it was at our Brentwood Center location, and we had close to 200 classified staff there. And it's an all-day event, and they have a guest speaker, and they have workshops, and they share a lot of information. And I think, it was really courageous for them to do that, to stand up to faculty and say, hey, because faculty have really run the staff development process, and say, hey, we want to do our own thing too. And I'm glad that they did that. And as I said, I've seen many individuals grow, be very courageous, and even though they were scared out of their wits to stand up and speak in front of an audience, they did it. And I take my hat off to them. In terms of students, I talked about this with the committee, and it's really hard to believe, but Los Medanos College, we didn't have an election process for student government. They had a process in place where students applied to a committee, and the committee looked over their applications, they interviewed them, and then they selected who the student senators were going to be. I didn't think that was right, and so I asked the student government, can we do something about this? I'd really like you to develop an election process. And it took a couple of years, but it finally took a few courageous students to say, yep, we're going to do this, and by gosh, they did it, and now we have elections every year, and we just had our student body elections, and we have our new officers for next year, and I again applaud those students for being courageous and going forward where other people wouldn't tread, and developing an election process in a college that never had that process in place. In terms of faculty, there are many courageous acts I could point to. I think one of them is going on right now at Los Medanos College, and that is we traditionally had an academic senate of the whole, so every faculty member was a senator. And we had this whole body, and everyone was supposed to vote. And the problem was that people wouldn't show up to the meetings. You'd have 10 people out of a faculty of 110, and that's not a representative meeting to me. I mean, I just don't think that's democracy. That's not shared governance. That's apathy, if you will. And so I think the faculty recognized that, and they took a courageous stand and said, we're going to change our governance process, and we're going to go to a representative senate like almost everyone else in the world. And I think that was tough for them to do. I mean, it really seems like it would be an easy thing. It is not an easy thing. And they've done it, and I think it's doing well. It's going to survive. And they actually are going to have another vote about it because it's been a pilot up till now. They have to pilot everything and see if it's going to work. And so I think that was a courageous act to really change the way they've done their governance from the beginning of the college and try something new. In terms of management, there are many examples again. One of the things I think would applaud the managers at LMC for is for not only putting up with a crazy president at times, but doing some of the things I've suggested, like going through a management training program. And I know they didn't want to do it. They really didn't. I mean, you know, there was some behavior there that, gee, why do we have to do this and so on. But you know what? Everyone did it. And in the end, everyone really liked it, and they got a lot out of it. And you know, I think many of them came to me and said, you know, that was really good. And we want to keep this up. We want to keep doing it. So to me, that was a courageous act. The thing that's courageous about it is because in this training program, you do a 360-degree evaluation, and that is not an easy thing to have. So your peers evaluated you, your superiors, you know, other people were allowed to evaluate you and give very direct feedback on your performance, and that was a scary thing, but people went into it with a lot of courage, and they benefited from that process.
Thank you. The next question comes from the Academic Senate. After being at Delta College for a couple of months, you review the master plan and discover some areas of concern that you had not originally seen. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it?
Well, obviously, it depends on what it is, but certainly you're going to bring that up with the board and discuss it with the board. The board needs to know about it right away, and certainly you talk in whatever shared governance meetings you have with all the constituent groups and say, hey, you know, this issue has come up, you need to know about it, and we need to figure out what we're going to do, or if you have an idea, you know, put it out there. We need to address this concern. There's a major gap in our master plan, or something isn't, you know, whatever the issue is. I mean, this is kind of vague, but I think you open up the communication lines with people and try to come up with a common solution, and don't leave, you know, people don't like surprises. So if you have a problem with something, you need to communicate that to everyone out there and try to work on a solution.
Next question comes from Classified Senate. How would you approach organizational change to meet your ideal structure?
Well, as I said before, to me the ideal structure is really a flattened hierarchy, so there aren't so many layers, so people can really communicate easily. And that's not always possible. It's not always easy to do. But anytime you go into an organizational change, it can't be just the president, it can't be just a group of managers. It really has to be a dialogue with the entire college community. And this recent reorganization that I'm doing now at LMC, I started the dialogue on this a year and a half ago, and you know, came out and started discussing it with faculty and staff and students. And I put out a preliminary plan to the whole campus so people could see it, and we had dialogues, and we had college assemblies, we had forums, you know, we had all kinds of things about it, so that it has to have widespread dissemination, widespread discussion, and you know, you come to a common understanding. As I said, it can't just be what the president wants, because that's not going to work. I mean, people have to get behind it, they have to support it, and they have to say, yeah, okay, we're willing to try this, and we're going to try to make it work. So otherwise, you're not going to get there. It can't be imposed from the top down. It really has to be a broad process of discussion. And our sister college at Diablo Valley can tell you all about that. They've had a very difficult time with their reorganization, and they didn't have the open discussion that we had at Los Medanos College. So that's what happens when you don't do that.
Our next question comes from the Management Senate. How would you approach the problem of a critical operational unit in the college that is failing to address the needs of other operational units?
Well, I think good management is to really find out what the problem is. Maybe it's something simple that you could fix. Maybe there's a problem in procedures, or there could be any number of things. If it's a personnel problem, it's a little stickier, but you need to address it if that's the case. And there are, again, a number of approaches. Do you need to send someone to more training? You need to move them to a different job where they might flourish. There are any number of approaches that you could take to this. But the bottom line is you need to get that unit functioning and serving the needs of other people in the way they're supposed to. And so, again, I think you'd have to gather information and try to really find out what is the problem there, and then that would kind of lead you to the solution, finding out where the problem is. And it's hard to speak hypothetically unless you have real examples of what a problem could be, but I think that's the approach that you would take. I hope that answers the question. If there's a follow-up somewhere, I'd be glad to answer it, but that's off the cuff. That would be my response to that.
And the last of the 12 questions comes from a student government. It says, please cite an example of how your institution values student needs and student leadership.
Okay. We've been going through a lot of dialogue and a lot of discussion about not only reorganization and college governance, but we've been talking about values, and we've been talking about how we serve students and how we would like to serve students, and we've been using the Community College of Denver as a case study and looking at what they did, because they were a college that was in the dregs. I mean, they were unsuccessful by any standard that you want to look at, and yet by developing a common vision, by putting a plan into place, by doing a number of other activities, in 10 years they turned it around. So their outcomes were all off the chart. I mean, they were transferring the highest number of underrepresented students. They had great occupational outcome. I mean, across the board, whatever you wanted to look at, it was good there. And it took a long time. So that's the kind of dialogue we've been having, because we want our students to be successful. I think any college wants that. And so student success has to be a foremost need and a value, and you have to find ways simply to help students to be successful. And whether it's getting back to that case management approach, or, you know, one of the things we did was redesign our English curriculums to pair developmental courses, reading and writing together in a 5-unit course, because we found reading was really a key to success at that level, and so students wouldn't take the reading unless we put it together in one unified course. And so those kinds of things, you keep, you know, looking at what are the things that are going to make students successful and how are we going to meet their needs. And in terms of student leadership, you have to invite them to the table and try to cultivate that leadership. Again, it's a matter of developing the pipeline and helping students to understand that they are leaders and that they can be leaders, and helping them to develop the talents, the innate talents that they have, and to, you know, step forward and take prominent positions at the college and get involved in committees and you know, searches and all the other things that go on at a college, and be advocates for student rights and student needs.
Thank you. And now Connie's turning down the lights. And it's now your opportunity to ask some more questions. I'm going to begin over on this side. So, Diana, I think you had a person in the shadows over here that I didn't see before. And then Connie, we'll have you come down here to Mr. Haley, and then we'll get you next. Somebody over on this side next, but okay, go ahead, Joan.
The shadow speaks. Good afternoon. My name is Joan Matthews. I'm here representing the community. My interest is in Tracy, my home, and I would wonder what your feeling about the Tracy Learning Center is. It's been put on a back burner. I'm wondering what kind of priority you would give to advancing the services at this center.
I would want to put it on the front burner. I think it would be very important to reach out to that community. I could, as an outsider and looking at Delta College from the outside, I could never understand why a center wasn't developed sooner at Tracy, the way the population was exploding there. And so I think that would be a very high priority for this college. That's a growing area. I mean, you have to serve the needs of those people there. I mean, that's what you're charged with. This is your service area, and you have to meet those needs. And so I think you'd have to put that center on the front burner if at all possible. Maybe there are some reasons that I don't understand why they were put on the back burner. I mean, you never know the whole story until you get on the inside. So, you know, and I don't mean to be critical of anyone at all, but I think it's really important to serve the needs of your entire service area, and to have these outreach centers, and to address and find out what the needs are in Tracy, and then to address those needs and try to have the best center that you can have there. When we started out in Brentwood, we didn't have a great center. It was in an old elementary school, and it was just a few classrooms. But now the center that we have is beautiful, and the community loves it, and they're always bragging about it, and they love going there, and we're doing gangbusters there. And I think the same thing could happen at Tracy, and you have to look for the partnerships. I think the college shouldn't try to go it alone. You should try to look for partners to help you, and that may not be possible either, but at least, you know, I would try to do that and try to see what opportunities were out there to develop that center. I think it's critical, and not only in Tracy, but in other parts of the service area, in to reach out as much as you can to all the different communities within the service area of Delta College.
Thank you. Who's going to be next on this side? Okay. I think we have Barbara in the back, and then, but we're over here with Mr. Haley next.
Okay.
I know the college is usually concerned about education, and that's a good thing, but how do you feel about athletics? And we got a lot of programs here. So how important do you think athletics in a junior college? And I'd like to have your views on that.
Okay. I love athletics, and I think it's just as important as the school newspaper, the school drama program, or any of the other special programs that you have at a college. And last week I went down to College of the Canyons, and I had to go to a conference in LA, and I took a morning to drive out to College of the Canyons. And the reason I did this was related to athletics. They have something there called the Cougar's Den. And what this is, it's a group of athletic people who want to support athletics, boosters, came to the college and said, we want you to develop this facility and we'll help raise the money and pay for it. And what it is it's an outdoor barbecue area, and it's landscaped like a park. There's a fountain, there's picnic tables, and there's these wonderful grills that you can barbecue on, and a big wall and tables, and it's just a lovely facility. And what they've been able to do, you know how hard it is to meet athletic budgets. You always have to raise money, on the outside to supplement, because our athletic budgets are never adequate. And so this has given them a real leg up, and they've been able to have fundraisers there, to have barbecues for corporations and for the city and for other organizations. They were getting ready for a bar mitzvah when I went there to visit. And the reason I went there is to take pictures. I took like 2 rolls of film of this place to take back to my foundation at Los Medanos, because they've said they want to do the same thing. And College of the Canyons also gave me plans. So we're going to try to do the same thing at Los Medanos, and to give the athletics a facility on campus where they can have fundraisers and try to raise money to supplement their budget, so there's not a drain on other campus resources on the operational fund and so on. And we're not going to cut the budget for athletics, but we want to supplement it in a big way. And the fundraising they do now is not adequate. I think athletics bring in lots of other people. It's like a nursing program. I mean, you have nurses in there, and they're taking all their GE courses, they're taking science courses, they're keeping students in all your other classes. And athletics is the same way. I mean, athletes have to be full-time students. They bring their brothers, or their sisters, their cousins, their nephews. It brings more students, and it builds a sense of community. And I think there are a lot of people out there who support athletics that we can go to and ask for help, to say, hey, we want this program to be the best program that it can be, and we need your help to do this. And people will roll up their sleeves and they will get involved, I can tell you that. So I think athletics are terrific. I think, I've had personally many benefits out of them. I played athletics my whole life, and I still am very active. And I'm going to have a break after I interview with the board. Between the board interview and dinner, I'm going to go to the 24-hour spa and try to run a couple of miles before the dinner. So, I try to stay active, and I think it's critical. I mean, our society is too sedentary, and athletics really show us, something a value that we need to preserve, and it has a lot more. I mean, the problem is Title IX, of course, and trying to keep our programs in balance, but I absolutely support athletics.
And that was Bob Haley, member of the community. I have to get you to identify yourself, Bob. Connie, if you go back to this lady, but in the interim, I think, Barbara, you have a question?
Rodriguez.
Good afternoon.
I'm Barbara Crocker. I teach in the drama department. I'm glad to hear you feel it's important for a drama program. My question is, what is it that attracts you to want to come to live in our community, hopefully, and how do you plan to establish your residence here?
You mean am I going to live in Stockton? Absolutely. If I'm selected, I will live in Stockton. You can count on it. There's no way not to live in the community. I mean, to try to commute. I tried doing that once a long time ago, and it just doesn't work. And the president, more than any other person in you have to be part of the fabric of the community. You have to be out there meeting people, and people need to see you at events, and you need to get on boards. I mean, I'm chair of 2 local boards, and I'm on about 5 or 6 other community boards in Contra Costa County. And you have to be part of that community. People need to see you as not only a leader of the college, but a leader of the community, so you have to be there. I mean, there's no way to get around it. And to think otherwise is, it's a fallacy. I mean, we're a community college. We're here for the community. So there was another part to your question that I might have missed. If I missed part of it, can you repeat it? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, a big part of that, I walk around Delta College, and Diana and Michael gave me a wonderful tour earlier, and I hear them complain about, we don't have space for this or that. And I look at these beautiful facilities here, and I say, oh my God, most people in other community colleges would die for some of the facilities that you have here. I mean, this is a beautiful campus. I mean, you're not going to find too many other community colleges that have the facilities that you have. I was lucky in that I started out at Cabrillo College in my community college career, and it's a college very comparable to Delta in that they have beautiful facilities there, and they passed the big bond measure, and they're improving their facilities even more, and that's part of what attracts me here is the comprehensiveness of this college and the community that's here, the spirit, the facilities. I mean, the whole thing, the whole ball of wax is very attractive to me. The last two colleges that I've worked at have been great. I really resonated with the community and what they're trying to do, but I've taken a college that was down and turned them around and set them on the path. Both at San Jose, even though I wasn't at San Jose as long as I would have liked to have been, and I left for various political reasons that I don't want to get into now, but I started certain things there that went ahead and I think helped that college move forward. And at LMC, I think we've completely turned it around from our last accreditation visit, and we had an outstanding visit, and the college has done so many things in the last 6 years that I'm very proud of what they've done. But I want to go to a single college district. I mean, that's really my dream, to go back to a college like Cabrillo, and Delta is that college. Because I think everything is much more manageable in a single college district. You can have better relationships, and I just like the feel of it better. And I've always thought the next challenge for me is to take a college that is good or very good and make that college a great college, and across the board. I mean, I want everything in that college to be excellent. That's the challenge that I set for myself if I come to a college like Delta College. And so that appeals to me, the challenge in that. Saying simply the best is wonderful. I like that slogan, but just simply saying it doesn't make it so, and you need to do some. This is a great college in some ways, but I don't think it is across the board. And I would love to see that this college be great across the board, and I think it can be, and that's what attracts me to this college.
Thank you. This lady right here, and then we'll go to Harry down here.
My name is Lisa Lopez, and I work for the Concilio in Tracy, the Council for the Spanish. And my question is, there are many young women who are single parents and have a lot of barriers. To continue their education, what kind of programs do you have in mind in order to assist these women in the future?
It's a good question, especially given the impending cuts in CalWorks and the way that the state is really abandoning that issue. And you look at the majority, who are the majority of students in community colleges, they're women. I mean, almost every community college, women are the larger group. So, of course, we have to address that issue. And I think if the state's going to cut CalWorks money, then you're going to have to find some other way to continue those programs. You can't just abandon them. That's too easy. You can't walk away from people who have such great needs. So, I try to find a way, and I'm not sure. I can't stand here and tell you that I have all the answers to that problem, but I would certainly try to find solutions to it. And if that means, trying to pool resources with other agencies, or trying to go out and raise money for it, or trying to squeeze some money out of the budget from other places, I don't know what the exact answer would be, but I know that it would have to be a high priority because those students are critically important to this college and any other college. Those are potentially future leaders, and they're going to have children who are going to come to the college, and we want them to be successful. We don't want to leave anybody behind in the society. We need to pull everybody along. That's really why I love community colleges, because that is our goal, is to bring everyone along. And so let's not abandon anyone.
Do we have somebody else with a question over here? We'll have Terry, but Harry, you're up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Harry Mersman. I teach sociology here. I was wondering if you could take a few moments and tell us about a book you've read in the last year which you found particularly moving, poignant, or influential.
Okay, well, I'm a big science fiction buff, so I read science fiction all the time. So I don't know how moving, those books are. I just like all the futuristic stuff, and I even reread some of the old books. I just reread last weekend Chapter House Dune, because I'm a big fan of the Dune series, and I even like some fantasy stuff like Lord of the Rings. But a lot of the reading that I do has to do with management, of course, and like the book From Good to Great that I mentioned, and those kinds of things. But recently, a book I read. It's a very short book, and it's really meant for adolescents, but my administrative assistant gave it to me and said, you got to read this book. And it's the story of a young man who was abused as a child and what he went through in his family and how he became the brunt of torture, of, kind of ritual, these horrible behaviors. I mean, just physically abused, mentally abused, in so many ways. And it's the first person, story, he's telling his account from as an adult's perspective what he went through. And I mean, if you don't cry reading that book and your heart doesn't go out to that young man and what he had to put up with in his life, and that doesn't make you think about your own life and how lucky you are to be where you are and have what you have, then you don't have a heart, And, I like to read those kind of books, and it's important for us to remind ourselves what other people go through. Otherwise, you can be so desensitized to the things that go on in our society. And we have to remind ourselves of what other people are going through and stay empathetic to that and try to make ourselves open to other people's experiences. So that's a book, I think it's called The Story, I don't remember the exact title, but something about it. I don't remember, but yeah, right.
Okay. Thank you. Terry, you're going to be the last question of the day.
Welcome, Dr. Rodriguez. My name is Terry Ogata, and I'm the CSCA president of Chapter 359. I have a two-part question. First of all, define what a healthy work environment means to you, and what active role have you taken to promote a healthy work environment, and how do you continue at your current place of employment, and how do you plan on continuing this at Delta College?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think a healthy work environment consists of a number of things. Of course, safety is always first, so you have to maintain safety. Beyond that, you want to have, of course, good working conditions, and that's you certainly have that here at Delta. There's no worry on that account. But I think the other thing that's really important is just respecting people for who they are and what they represent, what they bring to the table, no matter what group they come from. It all starts really with respect. And if we don't have respect for one another, and it gets back to what Roger said at the beginning about the ground rules for this forum, about civility. In my whole professional career, I've only raised my voice one time to yell at someone. And, I even regret doing that to a certain extent, but I think I was founded in what I did because this man was harassing my secretary, and I just confronted him one day and said, she went home crying that day. I had to send her home at lunch because she was so upset by what this man had done to her, and I just went to him, and he was like 6'4", but I didn't care. I just stood in his face and said, you so-and-so, you leave her alone, and if, and I couldn't help it. I just had to do it because, what he was doing was not respecting her. He was using his power. He was a manager, a fellow manager, and he was abusing his position, and that's not right. So you have to respect people, make sure everyone follows the rules. Beyond that, though, you need to do other things. You need to have recognition of people. You need to have ceremonies. You need to celebrate people and the good job that they do. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a barbecue at LMC that we do every year that the managers host for the classified staff, and to show our appreciation for what they do. And you need to have events like that throughout the year and to say thank you to people for the great work that they do, and to let them know that they're recognized, that they're a vital part of the college community, that you really care about them. It's really about heart. Do you want a college that has heart, or do you want a college that's cold and uncaring? I'd rather have a college with heart, and that's what I try to promote in my work style and at my college. And so it's difficult at times, and we all get bogged down, and we're so busy, we're doing so many things. It's not easy to do that, but you have to make the time to do it, and you have to make it a priority. And so that's my answer.
Prior to asking Dr. Rodriguez to make some concluding remarks, I did want to remind you about the cards that you saw when you came into the Atherton Auditorium. And please take some time to complete the cards and then hand it in either today or at Diana Slosson's office over in the President's office. And the board will use those in their deliberations that will be occurring on Friday. So don't wait a couple weeks to turn in the card. And so, if I would, I'll ask Dr. Rodriguez to make some closing remarks.
Thank you, Roger. Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today with you, and you've helped me fulfill 2 fantasies, and I want to tell you what those are, so you don't think I'm some kind of kook or something. Number one is that, I always admired Phil Donahue and wanted to play Phil Donahue, and I certainly have the white hair for it, and so I didn't get to run down the aisles like he used to do, but it was fun answering your questions, and I like the interchange, and thank you for that. And the second one is that I guess I'm a frustrated musician because I have no musical talent at all, and I kind of looked at this forum as a way to express music through words. I mean, I like jazz, and I like what jazz says about improvisation and creativity and so on, and I looked at this forum as a way for me to exchange words with you and maybe have a dialogue if we could. We had a little bit of that. I would have liked a little bit more, but the format was kind of tight here. But anyway, thank you for allowing me to go off on a couple of solos here and to answer your questions and to maybe hopefully make some beautiful music with you, and you fulfilled 2 of my fantasies. The other thing beyond that is that the question that I was asked before about why did I want to come here, I mean, that to me, I wouldn't be here if I didn't really want this job, if I didn't care about this college and this community and want to be a part of it. I think this is a great opportunity here. It's a wonderful college. It's a wonderful community from everything that I've heard about Stockton. And, as a college president, where I am now, I love my job. I love getting up every day and going to my job. And I could stay there and be very happy. But, going back to those lessons that my grandparents gave me, I've set certain goals for myself in my life, and I do this for myself and for my family, and I do it because of what my grandparents instilled in me when I was a child. And I say, God gave me certain talents. I have certain abilities. And that's why I went through graduate school and got my doctorate, because if I didn't, it would have been a waste of the talent that I had. And if I can't move ahead in my professional career, I feel the same way. It'll be a waste of the talent that I have. And so I'm coming here for personal goals, but I'm coming here for professional goals. And I would love to work with all of you and serve this community. And I really think it is a wonderful college, and I would like to help it move along to the next level, because no matter how good a college is, there's always room for improvement. And I think I have the skills and abilities to help you do that. So thank you for your consideration of me, and thank you for your patience today at this forum. Good luck.
Well, thank you all for coming, and this is the second of our 4 presidential selection town hall meetings. We'll have 2 more tomorrow and Thursday, so we encourage you to come back 2 to 3:30. Thanks for coming.